and training, we're basically talking about what are the types of activities that you're going to be running. And I'm only picking a few here, but I mean, I've only picked kind of like 3 of them. But this could be 10 or 20. It could be all sorts of different things. Typically, when you are launching a new makerspace, or if you've an established makerspace and you've got a new piece of equipment that you want to introduce, or that has been agreed by the young people that this is something that they would like to purchase, like sort of a heat press and a vinyl cutter, because they want to start creating their own logo designed garments for an enterprise project that they want to do and sell, but it's all to do with social campaign messaging on a particular issue. So you're hitting, you know, a number of key factors there in terms of your youth work outcomes. You could put them on equipment training. So that's a program in itself, and it's a very straightforward one that we tend to, as organizations, only look at equipment training for staff and volunteers. And sometimes we don't always include the young people, or we maybe have young leaders that are involved, but that can be a program, is about to train up everybody on how to use the equipment. And the reason for that is because of an approach that you want to take within makerspaces, is what's called reverse engineering. So reverse engineering is when you introduce a new piece of technology to young people who have never been exposed to that before. So that could be a Raspberry Pi, could be a VR headset, or it could be, you know, artificial intelligence. And they've never been exposed to this. They don't know what this is. They don't know how to use it. So yes, you would take them through the context of, this is a VR headset, and you probably used it in a gaming environment before. If you ever have used one, that's the most common use of it when it comes to young people. But you're going to train them in this particular piece of equipment in a way that is going to develop some kind of learning outcome, similar to the conversation we had about Minecraft and how they can use that to develop their own space and be part of the design process of their own environment before it's actually been built out, and that, you know, legitimizes their engagement within that process to funders. So when you are doing equipment training, when you're showing young people how a 3D printer works or a VR headset works, and the mechanics and the function and the basic functionality of it, once they understand how that works, and you've put maybe a little context project together with them, reverse engineering approach is basically, now you understand the basic principles of this, how will you use this going forward? And the more that you show young people how to use all the equipment in their makerspace, what they start to intuitively do in terms of that reverse engineering approach, because they have a basic understanding of it, is that there are 2 things that happen. One, they start to gravitate to particular areas of your makerspace and gravitate to particular areas of interest that are in relation to particular pieces of equipment. Some will gravitate towards more to do with Raspberry Pis and building and tinkering, because that's what they like. Others will start to do more coding, and others maybe start to do more kind of project mapping, art design projects. And then they'll start to develop their own understanding through that self-taught learning process, as we mentioned in the chat, new ways of developing and learning and making relevant content from those particular pieces of equipment when it comes to staff training. And then the other aspect of that reverse engineering is that they can start to just jump about the makerspace themselves in a more efficient way. They're not having to have a youth worker there showing them or overseeing every aspect they do. Basically, they organically, as a group or as an individual, say, I am going to design a mobile phone holder. So what do I need for that? Right, I'm going to go on the iMac, and I'm going to go into Inkscape or some program like that, and I'm going to design up what my 3D print model that I'm going to do, and they start to do the design aspect. Right, I'm going to jump on the 3D printer now, do a quick prototype of that. Oh yeah, there's a couple of things here I need to adjust, and then do another one, and then go back on and build out an app or something. So they're already intuitively through that reverse engineering approach, starting to then jump about and start to pull in little bits here and there of the equipment that you have available. And that's a really effective way of doing equipment training, as opposed to, here's the on button, here's how it works and all of that kind of thing. You can take it a bit further than that. Then you've got your pedagogical training. So we've already touched on this already, so I won't go on it too much. So design and facilitating hands-on projects, because that is what Makerspaces are. They are hands-on vocational learning experiences where don't worry if something breaks or something gets damaged. Obviously, you want to make sure that you are looking after the equipment in an appropriate manner, but it's in a safe environment where you can tinker and try out different things. And then they start to develop their own teaching techniques and assessment. And you want to then look at how you develop your assessment strategies, and your project management starts to differentiate from the way that you might do your assessment strategies and your project management currently within other aspects of your youth organization and how you run those particular projects and programs. So your assessment strategies as based on of is it a minimal viable product, is the baseline that you're going to measure this outcome against? Is it going to be a group of young people who came in and who couldn't work together but have now produced a program or a project or a physical creative event or something like that? Is that how you're going to assess the outcome of this project? Your project management of it is twofold. Again, I like to get young people to be taking on roles, and this is where it starts to lend itself over that. It starts to have a kind of divergence and from a makerspace making into that organic transference of a digital youth business incubator startup space, because the young people themselves start to take on their own roles, whether that be a project management role, a technical role, a promotional role, a financial role, and then they start to then come together as a group, and then they start to develop their own projects but take on separate roles within that. And that's a really interesting concept, and I know that's part of what this learning community has looked at as to how that's done. So that's a really great part of the pedagogical training of it. And then the last part is your design thinking workshops. So workshops that introduce a structured process for problem solving and iterative design, including identifying what the problem is or the issue that the young people want to address within their community. And then they generate those ideas or solutions. Not all are going to work. They prototype a selection of them. And then they start to then test out those designs and refine those designs. And that again falls itself back into that reverse engineering and project management and other roles that come out of that when you're doing the test phasing and the prototyping and solution. So there's a lot of communication happening. There's a lot of debate happening. There's a lot of your traditional youth work skills that are happening within there in terms of those design thinking workshops. And that's predominantly where a lot of the kind of makerspace type youth work activity kind of coalesces around.